When I came home from Afghanistan, I expected a welcome banner. Instead, I found a stranger's SUV parked in my driveway, my name ripped from the mailbox, and a note taped to the front door that read, "Property has been reclaimed by the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. Trespassing will be prosecuted. Karen Whitmore, HOA President, tyrant in yoga pants, and the reason my blood pressure spiked faster than an IED blast, had sold my house while I was fighting overseas. By the time she realized I wasn't going to roll over, it was too late, because I wasn't just one man. I was bringing the Marines." The taxi rolled to a slow stop in front of what used to be my house, 47 Maple Hollow Court, a beige two-story I bought 3 years before deployment. The street looked almost fake, like it had been pressure washed of any real life. Every lawn was the same length, the same color. The same approved mailbox post stood at identical heights, casting neat shadows. Willow Creek subdivision was never homey. It was clinical, sterile, a neighborhood that cared more about weed control than neighborly kindness. And there, standing on my porch with arms crossed, was a woman I recognized immediately from the HOA Facebook page, Karen Whitmore. She was exactly as described, bleach blonde bob haircut, oversized sunglasses, posture like she was measuring you for a fine. "Can I help you?" she asked in a voice that dripped with fake sweetness. I stepped out of the cab, my duffel slung over my shoulder, uniform still dusty from the flight. "Yeah," I said, staring her down. "This is my house." Her smile didn't falter. "Not anymore, soldier boy. The HOA repossessed it for unpaid dues." My jaw clenched. "I was deployed. Overseas. You were notified." "We sent letters," she interrupted, cutting the air with her hand like a traffic cop. "Multiple. You ignored them." "I didn't ignore anything," I said, heat rising in my chest. "I was on the other side of the planet." She shrugged, like I had just told her it might rain tomorrow. "You didn't pay. We foreclosed. Simple as that." I felt a cold, razor-sharp anger slice through me. "Where's my stuff?" Her grin widened just enough to show she enjoyed this. "Sold. Yard sale. The community made almost $800. We put it toward the new HOA pool furniture." $800. My furniture. My medals. My gear. My father's flag from his funeral. I took one slow step toward her, and for the first time, I saw her flinch. "You're lucky I'm not the man I was 10 years ago," I said. "You're trespassing," she snapped, regaining her composure. "Leave, or I call the sheriff." I left, but not because she scared me, because I needed time. The next morning, I drove to the county records office. The paper trail was worse than I thought. Karen had used an HOA loophole to place a lien, claim unpaid fees, most of which were fraudulent, and force a foreclosure auction. The buyer? The HOA itself, for a single dollar. They'd flipped it within a week to a community-approved family for 4 times its value. It wasn't just theft. It was organized theft. I called a lawyer. She told me I had a case, but it could take years to fight in court. Karen knew that. That's why she wasn't afraid of me. But she'd forgotten something about me. I wasn't a civilian with no resources. That night, I drove 3 hours to Camp Lejeune to see some old friends. The Marines don't forget their own. And when they hear one of theirs has been robbed blind while wearing the flag, they don't take it lightly. 3 days later, I came back to Willow Creek. This time, I didn't come alone. 2 Hums rolled down Maple Hollow Court, followed by a convoy of privately owned trucks, motorcycles, and 1 armored personnel carrier I didn't even want to ask about. 23 Marines. All of them in civvies. All of them smiling like they'd been waiting for this. We didn't need weapons. Not yet. We had something scarier, organization. We started small. Flyers went up on every light pole. HOA fraud. Know your rights. Copies of Karen foreclosure filings, public record, were taped to mailboxes. We started digging through the HOA's books, which were so riddled with miscellaneous expenses, it was laughable. Then we found the real bomb. HOA funds had been paying for Karen's vacations, her car payments, and even her kitchen remodel. We didn't tell her we knew. We let the pressure build. Every night for a week, we parked a different Marine vehicle outside her house. Sometimes it was a Humvee, sometimes a juice and a half. One night, it was a boat trailer with no boat just because it made no sense and unnerved her. Karen started calling the police. The police started laughing. Turns out a lot of them were veterans, too. The breaking point came on a Saturday morning HOA meeting. Karen sat at the head of the table in the community center, wearing a pastel sweater and a look of authority. Behind her was a banner, Willow Creek, a community of pride. We walked in, all of us, 23 Marines, filling every seat, lining every wall. The air went still. I leaned on the table, inches from her face. "You took my house," I said. "You stole my life. Now, I'm taking your HOA." And that's when I slid a stack of papers toward her, petitions signed by over half the neighborhood to remove the entire HOA board. And the law was on our side. She opened her mouth to speak, but her voice caught when she saw the last page, her own resignation letter, pre-written, ready to sign. "You can fight this," I said, "but you know who you'd be fighting." She signed. That night, the neighborhood was different. Kids played in the street without Karen's watchful glare. Lawns went unmowed and nobody cared. And for the first time, Willow Creek felt alive. As for Karen, she sold her house within the month. Last I heard, she moved to a condo downtown. No HOA, no power, just another face in the crowd. But the Marines? We stayed. We bought up houses. We rebuilt the block. And anyone who even thought about starting an HOA again, well, they remembered what happened to Karen. The first thing you need to know about taking down an HOA is that it's not about the rules, it's about the people enforcing them. If you break their authority in public, the whole machine starts to crumble. After Karen's resignation, you'd think things would cool down. They didn't. Her vice president, a smug realtor named Brad Kessler, stepped into the power vacuum. Brad was the kind of man who wore loafers without socks and had an ego the size of his overpriced listing fees. He'd been Karen's right hand for years, and now, with her gone, he saw an opportunity to rebuild the throne. 2 days after we forced Karen out, the HOA board posted a notice on every door in the subdivision. Effective immediately, all temporary vehicles, including military surplus equipment, must be removed from the neighborhood or face towing. I read it while sipping coffee on my porch, the porch I didn't technically own yet, since I was still renting the place next door to my old house. But I didn't need ownership to make a point. By noon, every Marine in the area had brought out more vehicles. Hums, Jeeps, an ancient 5-ton truck with half the paint missing. We lined the street like a convoy ready for deployment. By nightfall, Brad called the sheriff. The sheriff came out, took one look at the street, and asked, "So, you boys having a block party?" Brad's face turned purple. "They are violating HOA policy." The sheriff tapped his badge. "This here's a public roadway. HOA rules don't apply. You got a problem, you take it to civil court." That was a moment I saw fear in Brad's eyes, not because we'd outsmarted him, but because he realized he couldn't use his favorite weapon, the law. But Brad wasn't done. The next week, HOA inspectors, 2 guys in khaki shorts and polos, started walking the neighborhood with clipboards, photographing anything that looked non-compliant. They'd snap pictures of weeds, fences, lawn chairs left out overnight. So we followed them, not subtly, either. Picture 2 clean-cut Marines in mirrored sunglasses walking 5 feet behind them at all times. No words, no smiles, just a constant shadow. By the 3rd day, the inspectors quit. One of them actually moved out of the subdivision altogether. We could have stopped there, but we didn't. Because here's the truth, Brad wasn't the real problem. The real problem was the HOA's money. Without funding, it couldn't survive. And funding came from Jews. We started holding barbecues every Saturday. Big ones. Free food, music, beer. Every single homeowner was invited. And during those parties, we passed around a petition to temporarily suspend HOA dues until a full financial audit was complete. Within a month, 70% of the neighborhood had signed. Payments stopped coming in. Brad panicked. The HOA sent threatening letters. We collected them, posted them on a giant bulletin board at the next barbecue, and roasted marshmallows over a fire pit while reading them aloud like bad poetry. The humiliation was nuclear. That's when Brad made his fatal mistake. One Thursday morning, I woke up to find a tow truck hooked up to Staff Sergeant Miller's Humvee. Miller was a mountain of a man with hands like sledgehammers and a temper that could crater a city block. Brad stood nearby, holding a clipboard and smiling. Removing unauthorized vehicles, he said, smug as ever. Miller didn't even raise his voice. He just stepped forward, unhooked the Humvee with one smooth motion, and told the driver, "Leave." The driver left. Fast. Brad was still standing there when I pulled out my phone. "Smile," I said, snapping his picture. This is going on every veteran Facebook group in the state. By sunset, the post had been shared over 10,000 times. Brad's business page was flooded with one-star reviews. People were calling him the man who tried to tow a Marine's ride. He didn't come outside for 3 days, but we weren't done. On the 4th day, we filed the paperwork for a full recall election, legal under state law if more than half of homeowners petitioned for it. We had 80%. Brad's name would be on the ballot. So would the rest of the board. And when election night came, we didn't just vote them out. We replaced them with a new board entirely made of Marines, veterans, and a few civilian allies who hated the HOA as much as we did. The vote was a massacre. Brad got 3 votes, his own, his wife's, and a guy who owed him money. When we walked out of that meeting, the HOA was ours. But here's the thing about taking power. You inherit the enemy list. Karen was gone. Brad was humiliated. But I had this gnawing feeling in my gut, a feeling that someone else was pulling strings behind the scenes. That feeling was right. I thought we'd won. We had the board, the votes, the power. But then the letters started arriving, not from the HOA, but from a law firm downtown. Someone was funding a full-scale legal assault to dismantle everything we built. And the name on the letterhead? Karen Whitmore. Not only was she back, she was coming with reinforcements. Karen didn't just stroll back into the fight. She parachuted in like a general landing behind enemy lines. Only this time, she wasn't wearing pastel cardigans and wielding petty HOA bylaws. She was in a tailored navy blue blazer, with a high-priced legal team and the kind of smile that said she'd been plotting for months. The first salvo came by certified mail. Whitmore and Associates versus the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. Plaintiff claims misappropriation of HOA funds, violation of deed restrictions, defamation of character. It was a 40-page lawsuit, every paragraph designed to bleed us dry in legal fees. And she was suing our HOA, the one we'd just taken over, which meant every Marine now had skin in the game. "This is lawfare," I said at our first emergency board meeting. Miller cracked his knuckles. "We've dealt with worse. Lawyers don't scare me." "They should," said Harper, our treasurer, sliding a copy of the summons across the table. "She's coming after us personally, too. Claims we intimidated her and destroyed her reputation." I laughed. Her reputation was already a dumpster fire. "Yeah," Harper said, "but she's got money now. And money in court is like artillery. Doesn't matter how good your infantry is if you're getting shelled from a mile away." We decided to dig in. Literally. Karen had always been meticulous about her image, but people that obsessed with control always left messes behind the curtain. We needed leverage, something even her lawyers couldn't explain away. So we built Operation Spotlight. Step 1, track her movements. A couple of Marines who'd gone into private security followed her in shifts, never breaking any laws, just documenting. She visited her new law office twice a week, spent a lot of time at an upscale hair salon, and met regularly with a man named Gordon Blaine, a real estate developer with a reputation for quietly acquiring distressed neighborhoods. Step 2, follow the money. Harper started combing through county records, property tax rolls, and corporate filings. Within a week, she found something interesting. Karen was now listed as community liaison for a development company tied to Blaine. Step 3, connect the dots. It turned out Blaine's company had plans to buy up half of Willow Creek, tear down the houses, and put in luxury condos. The only thing standing in the way? Our board and the homeowners who supported us. Karen wasn't just suing us for revenge. She was trying to clear the battlefield for a full corporate takeover. We had to hit back before they steamrolled us. First, we went public. Not just flyers this time. We called every local news station. Veterans forced out of their homes by shady HOA tactics made for great headlines, and the media ate it up. By Friday, 3 separate news crews had interviewed us in front of the community center, cameras catching our rows of marine vehicles parked defiantly in the background. Karen responded with a press conference of her own. Standing next to Blaine, she painted herself as a victim of military intimidation and accused us of turning a peaceful neighborhood into a militarized zone. It almost worked, until one of the reporters asked her about the $40,000 the old HOA board had spent on executive retreats in Cancun. She stammered, changed the subject, and the clip went viral online. That's when the street game started, with fine nails scattered across driveways, tires slashed, mailboxes knocked over in the night. One morning, Harper's car was keyed with a word thief in foot-high letters. We knew it was Karen's people, but we couldn't prove it, so we set bait. Miller parked his Humvee in his driveway and put a cheap trail camera in a tree nearby. 3 nights later, we had footage of 2 masked men trying to pour sugar into his gas tank. The camera got a clear shot of their car's license plate. One of the men turned out to be an employee of Blaine's construction company. We sent the footage to the police and the local news. Suddenly, Karen's peaceful neighborhood narrative didn't hold up so well. But Blaine had deep pockets, and Karen had no shame. They escalated. We got notice that the HOA bank account had been frozen pending court review, meaning we couldn't pay for community upkeep, utilities, or legal fees. That was their play. Choke us out financially. Then we go guerrilla. I told the board. We cut every non-essential expense, pooled personal funds, and kept the lights on with cash donation from residents. Marines volunteered to mow lawns, repair fences, and keep the place from falling apart, all for free. And every time a neighbor asked why, we told them exactly who was trying to destroy our neighborhood. By the end of the month, public opinion had toned. Karen's side had money, but we had numbers and a community that refused to be bullied again. That's when Karen crossed the line. One rainy Wednesday night, I came home to find my temporary rental door kicked in. Nothing was stolen, except the framed flag from my father's funeral. There was a note on the kitchen counter. You took something from me. I'm taking something from you. I stood there for a long time, rain dripping from my jacket, staring at those words. That flag was the one thing I had carried through 3 deployments. Whoever touched it had just made this personal in a way I hadn't been prepared for. I called Miller. I didn't need to explain. 2 hours later, every Marine on our board was in my living room. No one said a word. We didn't need to. We all knew what came next. This was no longer about bylaws or lawsuits. This was war. When you're in the military, there's a saying, you don't fight where you're weak. You draw them where you're strong. Karen thought the courts were a battlefield, but she forgot we could open more than one front. And this front, we were taking it straight to her. We started with intel. Miller's security contacts pulled her full schedule, every meeting, every event, every coffee run. She lived in a gated condo complex on the other side of town, the kind with private security guards and blazers and a lobby that smelled like imported lavender. We didn't touch her home. Not yet. Instead, we started showing up around her life. The coffee shop she visited at 7:15 a.m., we'd be there, 2 tables over, in Marine Corps shirts, not saying a word. The gym where she worked out 3 nights a week. Harper and 2 others signed up for memberships and always ended up on treadmills right beside her. The city council meeting she attended, we were there, front row, watching. We weren't breaking laws. We weren't making threats. We were just there, and it got under her skin fast. The second phase was exposure. Karen's shiny new condo board had no idea who they'd welcomed into their pristine little community. We sent anonymous packets to every resident, copies of foreclosure documents, public court records, news articles about the Toda Humvee scandal. By the end of the week, her neighbors were giving her side-eye in the elevator. The following Monday, the condo board president respectfully requested she resign from her liaison role with Blaine's company, citing negative public attention. We knew we'd hit a nerve, but Karen was still dangerous. She still had Blaine's backing, and Blaine still wanted Willow Creek. So we went after him. Blaine's company thrived on fast acquisitions, swooping in on properties when owners were desperate, then flipping them for massive profit. That model depended on his reputation as a reliable closer. If we could make him look unreliable, we could scare off his investors. Harper found the soft spot, a development project in a neighboring city that was already teetering on bankruptcy. If we could expose its instability, the financial press would eat it alive. We didn't need hackers. We had veterans who knew how to dig through public records and corporate filings like they were reading a field manual. In less than 2 weeks, we uncovered unpaid contractors, fake safety inspections, and permits that had been fast-tracked through questionable means. We packaged it up, sent it to 3 major real estate blogs, and waited. When the story broke, Blaine's investors started asking questions. Deals stalled. 2 of his top partners publicly announced they were re-evaluating their relationships with his firm. Kara must have realized the walls were closing in, because that's when she finally reached out directly. It was a Friday night. I was on my porch with Miller, drinking a beer, when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. "You think you won," her voice hissed through the speaker, "but you don't know how far I'm willing to go." I stayed quiet. Let her talk. "I built that neighborhood," she said. "I kept it safe. I kept it clean. And you turned it into a circus. When I'm done, you won't have a home, you won't have a dime, and no one will remember you were ever there." Click. She hung up. Miller looked at me. "Guess we're doing Phase 3. Then." Phase 3 wasn't subtle. The next morning, at exactly 7 a.m., a convoy of marine trucks rolled into her condo complex, every one of them flying a massive American flag. We didn't touch her property. We didn't shout. We didn't even get out of the vehicles. We just parked in the visitor spots, engines idling, for 15 minutes. Then we left. The symbolism wasn't lost on her. That night, Karen's car was spotted speeding away from Blaine's office building. 2 days later, Blaine's company announced they were discontinuing their Willow Creek development project due to unforeseen legal complications. We knew exactly what that meant. She'd been cut loose. But this wasn't the end. 3 days later, my phone rang again. This time, it was Harper. Her voice was sharp. "You're not going to believe this," she said. "Karen just bought a house, back in Willow Creek." I felt my blood run cold. She wasn't retreating. She was bringing the fight right back to our doorstep. We thought taking out her allies would end the war. We were wrong. Karen was moving back into Willow Creek, and she wasn't coming alone, because when the moving trucks arrived, they weren't just full of furniture. They were full of people, and they all looked ready for a fight. The moving trucks started rolling in just after sunrise. 2 rental box trucks, a couple of pickup caravans. By 9 a.m., Karen's driveway was a battlefield staging area. Only these weren't just random friends helping her move in. The first clue was their shirts, matching black polos with a gold key logo. I recognized it from Blaine's development company. They weren't movers. They were contractors. Big, broad-shouldered, the kind of guys who didn't blink much. The second clue? They kept unloading more than furniture. Heavy-duty toolboxes, industrial padlocks, bundles of laminated signs that read, "Property monitored by private security. Trespassers will be prosecuted." This wasn't a homecoming. This was an occupation. By noon, Karen was out on her new front lawn in oversized sunglasses, clipboard in hand, pointing at houses and muttering to one of the contractors. He glanced at mine more than once. Miller showed up 20 minutes later. No words, just a long look at the scene and a slow, deliberate crack of his knuckles. "They are testing us," he said. "Yeah," I replied. "Let's test them back." That afternoon, I called every Marine who'd stood with us before. Word spread fast. By sundown, 14 trucks, 3 Hums, and a scattering of motorcycles were parked along Maple Hollow Court. We didn't block her driveway. We didn't trespass. We just surrounded her, quiet, watching. Her new recruits didn't like it. A couple of them muttered to each other, one pretending to check his phone, but holding it like he was recording us. I smiled and waved. The first night was tense. At 2 a.m., I caught movement outside my window. 2 of Karen's guys were walking the street with flashlights, shining them at houses, especially ours. I stepped onto my porch. Lose something. They froze. Miller's porch light clicked on across the street. Then Harper's. Then 3 more. Within 10 seconds, half the block was awake, standing outside. The contractors left in a hurry. The next morning, Karen played her next card. She started going door to door, telling neighbors that the Marines were creating a dangerous environment and that she'd be reforming the HOA for everyone's safety. But the thing about propaganda is, you can't sell to people who already know you're a liar. By noon, 4 homeowners had sent me recordings of her visits. By evening, those clips were on the neighborhood Facebook group, with captions like, "Here she goes again, and didn't you get kicked out already?" Her last hope was intimidation. 3 nights later, one of her trucks parked across from my house and just sat there, engine idling. No one got out. No one spoke. They just stared. It was almost funny, like they thought we didn't know how to handle surveillance. I called Miller. 10 minutes later, 2 hums pulled in behind the truck, boxing it in. 4 Marines stepped out and leaned on the hood, smiling. The truck left. Fast. We knew this was heading toward a final confrontation. It came on a Saturday. Karen called a neighborhood assembly in the community park. Her flyers promised a vote to restore order, code for bringing back the HOA with herself in charge. We didn't stop her. We showed up. Over 100 residents gathered on the grass. Karen stood on a portable stage, microphone in hand. Her new recruits fanned out like bodyguards. She launched into a speech about law and order and community standards, trying to paint us as reckless outsiders. Then it was my turn. I walked up slow, microphone in one hand, a thick folder in the other. "This," I said, holding the folder high, "is every fraudulent fine, every illegal foreclosure, every misuse of funds that Karen Whitmore approved during her last reign. All public record, all verifiable." The crowd murmured. Her face tightened. "And this," I pointed at her contractors, "is what she's bringing into your neighborhood. Not neighbors. Not friends. Hired muscle to scare you into giving her power back." A voice from the crowd yelled, "Not happening!" Cheers broke out. Karen tried to interrupt, but I didn't stop. You all remember what it was like before. The constant harassment, the threats, the fines. That's what she's selling you. You want it? Vote for her. You don't? You stand with us. The vote wasn't even close. 98 against. 2 for. Her face went pale. Her recruits started backing away as residents closed in, not violently, just making it clear she wasn't welcome. That night, Karen's house went dark. The next morning, the trucks were gone. A week later, a for sale sign was in her yard. She didn't hold another meeting. She didn't make another speech. She was just gone. Life in Willow Creek settled after that. The lawns were still neat, but no one got fined for a crooked mailbox. Kids played basketball in driveways without someone snapping pictures. And every 4th of July, we flew the biggest American flag in the county right in the middle of Maple Hollow Court. Because the Marines didn't just take back a neighborhood. We made sure no one, not Karen, not Blaine, not anyone, could ever take it from us again.